So this presentation is the EPD 101 workshop that hopefully will give our membership and our staff basic understanding of EPDs, what they are, how to use them, how they're calculated, and answer any questions that you might have about the performance program. So first of all, EPDs, which stands for expected progeny differences, are predictions of an animal's breeding value. So they're predictions of an animal's genetics. So a lot of people will ask me, well, how come this bull doesn't look anything like his numbers? And the reason is the bull's phenotype, what he looks like, is a product of his genetic potential plus his environment. The EPDs just describe his genetic potential, what he's going to be passing on to his progeny. Because when you're going to go buy a bull, that's really what you're buying, is his genetics. So it will tell you how we expect his calves to perform. So it's distinct from the environment, and that's the only fair way to compare animals that were raised in different environments. It's not fair to compare say raw birth weights or weaning weights or yearling weights of a group of calves that was born in January in Texas to a group of calves that was born in June and fed somewhere else. Very different environments, and we know that the phenotype is affected by the environment and the genetic potential. So hopefully these EPDs are used as guidelines towards genetic improvement. The biggest thing is to have a goal for your genetic improvement. What is it that your customers are looking for? What is it that you need to improve in your herd? What is it that you'd like to maintain in your herd as well? If you know your herd is great for calving ease or milking, you want to make sure you keep an eye on that and maintain that and not lose sight of that. So these are tools that can be used as guidelines for traits and the genetics that contribute towards those traits. This is how the animal model that we use. So the phenotype or the weight, for example, that our members submit to us is equal to the genetic potential of the animal plus the environment. And if you rearrange that, the genetics or the EPD is equal to the phenotype minus the environment. So how do we remove that environmental factor? We use contemporary groups to do so. So when we make contemporary groups, we try to group together only animals that are raised the same, that are given the same opportunity to develop that specific trait. So for weaning, which is this example, all 4 of these animals should have been given the same opportunity to develop weaning weight.
Whether they're male or female?
That's a great question, Shirley. So all the animals in a contemporary group are always the same sex. We don't compare females to bull calves, for example. They have different growth rates. They have different hormones, and those affect growth. Same with steers and bull calves.
So even if they send in their worksheets all with 1s on them, we have to split it up between 1 and 2 for the male and the female.
So our system will split it up for our members automatically.
So we just put in the 1s
You got
like
it.
they did, okay.
So that's a great question. The management group that's reported by our membership is extremely important. It should only reflect animals that were treated the same. Normally what I say to our members is put all your animals in one group, say group number 1. Then if an animal gets sick, bring it out to another group, say group number 2. If you had a couple of show animals and you fed them extra, bring it out of group number 1, put them in group number 3. And then when the data comes to us, our system uses other parameters, whether what their sex is, whether they were twins, ET calves, born in different seasons, to further group the animals. So that eventually when you're looking at a contemporary group, it should really be animals that have the same opportunity to develop that specific trait. So in this example, these 4 animals should have had the same opportunity to develop weaning weight, and the contemporary group average is 600 pounds. So really, the way it works is we think 600 pounds is what the environment gave towards weaning weight for this group. This animal that weighed 610, that plus 10 is his genetics. And in a very simplistic way, you could think of his weaning weight EPD as a plus 10. Now if you fed this group of bull calves, their whole contemporary group average would go up because you've given them extra feed, and you would expect it to be, say, 800 pounds. You would still expect this 610 animal to be 810. No matter what the environment, this specific animal will weigh 10 pounds more than his peers because he has extra additive growth genes. Or his EPD for weaning weight is plus 10.
So the one above it would be 20 pounds heavier.
That's right. Now here's the caveat. The information that you get back for EPDs is only as good as the information you put in for the calculation of EPDs. So if in fact you had actually fed these calves extra and not these calves, you should have put them in 2 different management groups. Because now look at the group average. This calf is not a plus 10, he's actually a minus 5. So management group recording is very important. It needs to be done correctly.
Well, I thought the program takes it out.
The management group, it takes out for sex and other parameters, but if the member had put all of these animals, these 4 in group number 1,
Yeah.
we wouldn't know that these 2 were fed extra.
Or that one was sick.
Or that one was sick, for example, yeah.
Yeah, because they haven't changed it up.
So our members have to give us the correct management groups. And if you think about it, it doesn't just affect this one calf. If we had wrong management group, this calf would be a plus 10 when he's actually a minus 5. But this calf would have been a minus 10 when he's actually a plus 5. So you'll really affect all your calves if you give in wrong data. So management group is the most important part about giving information. With birth weight, I always advise our members to put the calves in groups depending on how they treated the dams during the 3rd trimester or the last 3 months of their pregnancy, because that's when birth weight is developed. So if you had a show cow that you were feeding extra while she was pregnant, put that calf in a different group for birth weight. Does that make sense? Or if you had heifers that you bought, bred heifers, and they had to travel a really long way to get to you just before giving birth, that's a stress on them. So that's a disadvantage to the calf who's developing birth weight. Put those calves in a different group for birth weight. The management group should just give us information on management and how animals were raised, and then we internally will split according to other parameters like season, sex, twins, ET. We'll do the rest of the splitting. So the management group should just reflect management. These are the EPDs that we provide for our membership. Lori, we have a suite of growth EPDs, the birth weight, weaning weight, and yearling weight, and those are all reported to our members in terms of pounds. So if you have an animal with 100-pound EPD and another bull that has 120-pound EPD, you would expect that bull with 120-pound EPD to throw calves that are on average 20 pounds heavier than the 100-pound bull's calves. So it's all in a matter of pounds so that it's easy to understand the effect that that EPD will have. Milk is also in pounds. Unlike dairy, we don't record the amount of actual milk from our dams. What we do record is the weaning weight of her calf. So when we calculate the milk EPD, we actually extrapolate how much of that weaning weight of the calf was additive growth genes, and that goes towards his weaning weight EPD. And then how much of that calf's weaning weight was donated to him or contributed towards his weaning weight through the dam's milk, and that goes towards her milk EPD. My favorite EPDs are calving ease direct and calving ease maternal. When a commercial customer comes to you and asks you what the birth weight of your bull was or your calves were, what he's really looking for is calving ease. And we have 2 great EPDs that describe just that. They are correlated with birth weight, but they also describe the size and shape of that calf. Sometimes you can have a really heavy calf, but it's long and slick and it comes out really easy. Don't forget, the lower the birth weight that you select for, the smaller your heifers are going to be that need to give birth the next year. And the more you're going to have to feed your calves to get them to 1,500 pounds. So what they're really looking for is calving ease, and we have 2 fantastic calving ease EPDs. Calving ease direct describes for you the proportion of a sire's calves that will come out of a first-time heifer without assistance. So it describes the shape and size of his calves and how they will come out of a first-time heifer.
That's in pounds?
That's in probability, so percentage. The higher the number, the higher the probability you will not have to assist in birth. The higher the number, the less times you have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Calving ease maternal describes to you how a sire's daughters will do when they're giving birth for the first time. So it describes to you his daughter's shape, their pelvic shape, their shape as cows, their size, and their stamina during giving birth. So if I was looking for a bull off of whom to retain heifers, I would be looking at calving ease maternal pretty strongly. I would also be looking at stability and heifer pregnancy. Stability describes to you the probability that a female will remain in production for more than 6 years. So again, Shirley, that's in probability. So the higher the number, the higher the probability she will be in production for more than 6 years, which is the industry standard for a female to pay for herself.
6 years.
So when we send out our herd inventory sheets, and we don't generate weaning weight sheets until we know exactly what happened to each female, it's because we want to know, did she produce this year? And if not, why? Was she open? Was she used as a donor dam or a reset dam? Or did you cull her? And if a member called her for bad teats and udders, bad feet, infertility, bad temperament, bad performance, that goes towards her stayability. That's why we ask for that information. Heifer pregnancy, we ask for the heifer exposure sheets. It describes the probability that a heifer will get pregnant the first time she's exposed to semen or a male. So if I was looking at building a cow herd of really efficient, high fertility, good stability, good calving ease females, I'd be looking at these EPDs. The next suite of EPDs that we provide to our membership is carcass EPDs. Ribeye area, fat, marbling, carcass weight, and yield grade. Yield grade is an odd EPD in that the lower the number, the better it is. Ribeye area is in square inches, the area of the ribeye. Fat is in inches, the thickness of the back fat. Marbling is in grade, so it's a score. Carcass weight is in pounds, and yield grade is a grade score. The best way to build EPDs for an animal like a sire is actually progeny data. So carcass EPDs are built from either ultrasound scan information, now the genomic information, or carcass information off of the kill floor from progeny.
And we don't get that information back yet.
That's right. The Canadian Angus Association is developing a program where we'll be able to actually use progeny carcass information towards the calculation of EPDs for our sires.
So if a person were to use a program such as Traceback that already has that in place, could we use that data?
Yes,
Right now?
the program that we're developing right now will be able to utilize that data and apply it towards calculation of EPDs towards our sires. That's why we require that people record all of their calves and give us weaning weights on all of their calves, not just the ones that they register. I always remind people, your best never looks as good as it is unless you also record your worst. So we work on a principle called whole herd reporting, and we require information on all females, either a calf or a cow status code, and then we require a weaning weight or a calf status code on all calves. EPDs, again, are a prediction of the genomic value or the breeding value of an animal. And of course, animals' phenotypes, the calves, how much they'll actually weigh, for example, is determined by that potential, that genetic potential, and the environment. So when you look at an EPD and you have a yearling weight EPD of plus 100, it doesn't tell you what the calves will weigh. It tells you what they will potentially weigh in comparison to either another bull or the breed average. But then what they finally weigh is also dependent on your management. But EPDs are used as comparative numbers. So you either compare two bulls or two animals, or we provide our membership with the breed average so they can see, if they just have one animal to evaluate, they can see where they lay in comparison to the breed average. And we have a black breed average for our black Angus evaluation, and we have a red breed average for our red Angus evaluation.
And those two cannot be compared to one another, right?
That's right. I have an explanation about that later, but these are calculated using different formulas in two separate evaluations. So you cannot compare a red EPD to a black EPD.
So this animal's calves, when born, would be around 74 pounds in that area? Is that what I understood? The yearling weight?
If you had an animal that was a pure reflection of the breed average, his calves would be around plus 74.
Yeah.
Now, their yearling weight, the actual weight, will depend on the environment. So if you had that 600 environment for weaning weight, and you had plus 42, you would expect that this sire's calves would weigh 42 pounds over that average.
It's way too much information.
I'll show you a way to make this very easy. Let me explain about accuracies first. Sierra, if you were to pick a bull to buy today, you have the money, they're the same price, which one?
The accuracy on bull B is better.
Absolutely.
I know more what I'm getting.
You got it. So, if you look at the range, because I told you EPDs actually come in a range depending on the accuracy. For yearling weight, let me just go back to this table. Look at this yearling weight EPD. They're very similar, but the accuracy is either 10% or 70%. If you look at the range,
There was more information probably on bull B.
so we had more information with which to calculate the EPDs for Bull B. He's probably got a lot more progeny on the ground than Bull A. And that's what the accuracy box reflects. It reflects the quality and quantity of information with which we had to calculate it. Remember, an EPD is a prediction. So it's our estimation based on the information that we have. So the range for the yearling weight EPD at a 10% accuracy is anywhere from 55 to 86 pounds. Now that's quite a big range to make a breeding decision on or purchasing decision on. Whereas at a higher accuracy, the range gets tighter. So at a 70% accuracy, the range is actually 66 to 77 pounds for a 70-pound EPD. And I got that range by looking at the possible change table. If you look at 70% accuracy and yearling weight, it was plus or minus 5 pounds of whatever the EPD was. In the last example, it was 70. So it was plus or minus 5 pounds of 70. That's an easier, more narrow range within which to make a decision. So when we first have an animal recorded in our system, we generate parental averages for the animal, and you see a P in the accuracy box. Now, all of us know that if you look at a progeny or a child from two people or progeny from two animals, they sort of look like a blend of their parents, but it's a good base to go on, but it's not exact. Once we have some information on the animal, you get an interim EPD. It's a parental average plus a little bit more information, and that's why you have the P plus in the accuracy box. When the animal is evaluated for its own merit in the national cattle evaluation that occurs using all the cattle, Angus cattle in North America, both the US and Canada, you get a numerical accuracy or a number in the accuracy box. And the higher the number, the more accurate that EPD is. It amazes me that we don't have accuracies in a lot of our sales catalogs, because really you need to, if you're going to use EPDs, you need to know how reliable they are, how much weight to put in your decision to use them.
So it's very important when somebody sends in a correction to change the sex of that animal, and they have like an NCE, we've got to delete those
Yes.
and then rerun that again to give them the proper
Yes. That's right. You got it.
Yeah.
Because they would be taken out of that contemporary group, right? So a tool to improve the accuracies on animals that are young and don't have that much performance program, like that bull A in the last example, is to use a genomic marker panel. The Canadian Angus Association provides for its membership the identity panel for Black Angus breeders, as well as the Pfizer 50K Black Angus panel. These panels are priced at half price until March 31st of 2013 under some funding that we've secured through AIP. So for Black Angus breeders, the Identity Angus panel and the Pfizer 50K Black Angus panel are designed to increase accuracies for the EPDs of these animals. For Red Angus breeders, we have available the Pfizer 50K Red Angus panel, also at half price. The Pfizer panels are more expensive because they have more markers on the panels and they include parentage markers. So the Pfizer panel includes parentage verification. Our members would get results in the identity scores or the Pfizer percentile rankings, and then the biggest value of these markers is they would get genomically enhanced EPDs, which are basically just EPDs for younger animals that have a little bit more information with which to calculate that EPD, so a higher accuracy. So just a reminder that for our Black Angus animals and our Red Angus animals, we do 2 different evaluations. We do this so that we can compare our EPDs with the EPDs of animals in North America. So in the US, a black US animal can be compared to a black Canadian animal, and a red Canadian animal's EPDs can be directly compared to a US red American animal's EPDs. However, you cannot compare a red animal in Canada to a black animal in Canada. And you cannot compare other breeds. So some of the tools that we have on our website that not everybody is aware of, but are really excellent tools. If you go to our website and go under Animal Inquiry, you're able to search for any animal. And normally I ask members who are taking the course to just pick an animal. You can look at its pedigree. And you can also look at its EPDs and its percentile rankings. So surely you said all these numbers are really confusing. I don't know if I want to learn them. A lot of our membership and their commercial customers feel the same way. So if you're not a numbers person and you don't want to look at this EPD table, all you need to do is look at this percentile graph. And this will tell you this animal is in the top 10 percentile for lighter birth weights, but also in the top 10 percentile for heavier weaning weights and yearling weights. This animal is in the top 20 of our breed for calving ease. This animal is in the bottom 90% almost for fat, so it is a fatter animal. And it tells you which way the graph goes. Fatter, leaner, lighter, heavier. So that's a great tool. The other tool that we have for our members, and this is a great tool for commercial customers. When a commercial Angus genetics users call me, I often forward them to this. If they're looking for an animal that meets their requirements, they can go to the EPD inquiry page under herd book. They can look for an animal that's a male, that's active. If they're going to a specific sale, they can look for an animal that's owned by that breeder. If they're interested in a specific sire, they can actually dictate what sire they want. So I just looked up UGA in the example that I showed you below. So I'm going to say, go ahead and find me any UGA animal, and then I'm going to give you some parameters. So if we go back to my example of wanting to have some good calving ease animals, I'm looking for a black animal for this example. So this is the breed average for calving ease. EPD is plus 1.9. I want a really high calving ease animal. I'm going to pick one that's at least, this is the minimum box, 4.
What's the 2.4 in red?
That's the breed average for the red. I also want really high marbling animals because I actually market my own calves, and so do my commercial customers, and we get paid a premium for really good marbling. So I'm going to go with 0.5, and that's my minimum. If you put it here, that would be your maximum. So if you, for example, had a maximum yearling weight that you wanted, you could put it in there. Let's use calving ease as a sorting, and let's search. And this will search for you all the animals that fit your requirements. So of UGA tattoo, these are all the animals that fit my requirements. So if I was going to the Kudlow sale last week, I could have already pre-sorted their animals and seen which ones met my requirements. So you do have to start off with having a goal. If you don't have a selection goal, then EPDs are guidelines to what? Something very vague. So you do have to start off with a goal. And then when you find the animal you're looking for, here are the EPDs, here are the accuracies, here's the percentile ranking, and the breed average. If you're not a numbers person, please just click on this graph and have a look at that. So those are some tools that the Angus Association has for its membership. And we just like to remind our members that we don't recommend single trait selection. We recommend using these as a tool for balanced animals. And that's looking at the phenotype that's using the EPDs as a tool, but it is proven that using EPDs as a guideline will allow our membership to realize their specific selection goals faster. And then, of course, I'm always here for help.